Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining our booth at TechAdvantage with Gresco. The topic for today is going to be confined space inspections, which is a broad topic that we chose to go with, but we're going to drill down to some more exciting use cases around actual confined space inspections as it pertains to UAS. Let me. Okay. So I am your presenter. My name is Chuck Devaney. I am a senior UAS pilot, and I manage the UAS program here at Salt River Project in Phoenix, Arizona. I also sit on the remote sensing committee at SRP. I graduated from college, in grad school, University of Hawaii in Manoa, in geography. I focused more on geospatial technologies, so more GIS, remote sensing, photogrammetry. My UAS experience includes a lot of humanitarian assistance and disaster response in hurricanes. I've done a lot of coastal monitoring while I was going to school in Hawaii, especially grad school. Did some vegetation management, I still do, for our group here. Did some Department of Defense work, cinematography for ABC 2020, and also for our media group here, and then survey and mapping, of course, and then a lot of stuff around energy. So the agenda for today is we'll talk about who is SRP, and we'll talk about the business units who utilize Flight Services UAS program. And then we'll talk about the use of UAS in confined and enclosed space inspections at SRP. And we'll talk about an exciting new use case for us around the use of UAS for inspection. So who is Salt River Project? Salt River Project is a political subdivision of the state of Arizona, which operates a federal reclamation project established by the Federal Reclamation Act of 1902. So what does that mean exactly? It means back in the early 1900s, during the Teddy Roosevelt era, a group of agriculturalists wanted to continue their agricultural craft and be able to have more access to reliable water sources for irrigation in the valley. So they got together and they approached the federal government and said, hey, we want to farm in the desert some more. And they said, okay, well, here's an idea. We'll put a dam here, but we need some help paying for it. So they leveraged their property as collateral. They built the Teddy Roosevelt Dam, which impounds the Salt and Tonto rivers. I think I can use a pointer here. Here we go. The Salt and the Tonto rivers here, which is the Roosevelt Dam impounds and forms Roosevelt Lake. Well, during the construction, they got to a certain point in the construction, they said, hey, let's put in a turbine, generate some electricity for our construction efforts. And then they said, well, this is working out really well. Why don't we provide power to some of the local residents? And they said, well, that's working out really, really well. Why don't we just go ahead and build 3 more of these dams, not all at the same time, but sequentially, and we'll produce power and we will provide water, potable water and irrigation water to the Phoenix Valley. We also manage the Verde watershed, which is right over here, and that's more for, like, we have gravity dams on this watershed, but they're not they don't produce power. It's more for water retention. So this is the 2 watersheds that we manage, and we also have an expansive transmission network as well as distribution. We have hydroelectric dams, we've got coal assets, we've got gas powered plants. We also have an invested interest in Palo Verde nuclear power station. So business units that utilize UAS at SRP. First one being survey. Next one, GIS cartography. Our generation departments, distribution, maintenance, transmission, substation engineering, creative services, our water resources group, vegetation management, our fuels group, which manages a lot of our coal assets and others, and then our mechanical construction and maintenance department. So each one of these has its own use case. Some of them are similar. Some of them share the same equipment and deliverables. Others have more tailored solutions and equipment to go along with that. So the SRP UAS program is a subsidiary of Flight Services. We also have a couple helicopters and a business jet. So some of the confined and enclosed space inspections that we do at SRP at this point in time, we do underground electrical vaults. We do Hersigs, which are heat recovery steam generators. We do boiler furnaces. We do penstocks and also water storage tanks. So the water storage tanks is actually done by ROV. The electrical vaults, well, we'll get into that in a couple slides here. I'll tell you a little bit how we actually go about doing that. And then Hersig and boiler furnaces, I don't believe that as far as industries go is anything new. It's relatively new to us, but it's definitely given us a whole new perspective on how we are able to view the conditions of our gas assets. And then there are other confined space inspections that are done, but these are the ones that I am, as a UAS pilot, directly involved in. So, and then of course, all of our confined and enclosed space inspection, it requires a thorough clearance permitting process to ensure safety. So I just wanted to add that to kind of highlight the actual safety component. So an inspection process overview. So it usually includes an outage. So the asset is not powered up, so you can actually access it. So they pull off the hatches to the access for different modules, say for a Hersig or for a boiler furnace. And the air quality is monitored for a period of time. So once they give an all clear to actually enter the asset, clearance permits are issued and must be signed off by the supervisor. And then if needed, and usually is, to get eyes on, especially something that is over 70 feet tall, they have to erect scaffolding, which takes a lot of time, costs a lot of money, and of course they got to take it back out. So that just compounds the cost and the time factor. And of course, confined space training is required before entering any confined space. So talk a little bit about some of our assets that we use for collecting the information for inspection. So we mentioned that we do water tank inspections for our potable water tanks for different locations that we have throughout the valley and outside of the valley as well. We have a Deep Trekker Revolution. So this has an onboard sonar, high resolution camera, some laser pointers. We use this to determine the amount of sediment that might be building up in any of our water tanks. And then also we use them for the trash racks and the tail race trash racks for our hydroelectric facilities to see how much sediment is being built up against those trash racks, or if there's any debris from trees and whatnot that can end up in the lake and then subsequently ends up or consequently ends up against our trash rack. And we can even do some removal with the claw. So might not be exactly a confined space inspection as you might see in a lot of different utilities around, but I thought I would make mention of it anyway, and it's a really neat tool. Other equipment that we use for confined space inspections, we do have a DJI Mavic 2 Enterprise Dual. So the distribution group approached me and said, we would like to be able to access our underground electrical vaults while energized to do an inspection. So thought about it and I said, well, probably not a good idea to put an asset such as a drone in an underground confined space while it's energized, I mean, what could possibly go wrong with that? So I said, hey, instead of actually flying the thing, why don't we build a bracket, put it around the the uh, the Mavic 2, and we'll put it on the end of a hot stick, and that should be able to get you the information that you need for your inspection. So we brought in our safety group. We brought in a bunch of different engineers and said, here, let's give this a go. Let us know if it works out. So we did, and turns out that it worked out. So we didn't actually have to fly it to gather the information. Instead, we just had it on the end of the stick, and we still utilized the lights and the camera and thermal camera, thermal sensor, and we're able to get them all the information they needed to give our underground vaults a clean bill of health. So I guess you don't always have to fly these things to utilize them. And then more of our flagship underground, or actually confined space unit, is the Flyability Helios II. So this is a collision tolerant UAS designed to go into confined spaces in a GPS denied environment. So it's relatively stable once it gets locked on to features such as the wall of a boiler or a Hersig. And we enter the Hersig module, myself and an engineer. I pilot it. It's really, really difficult to pilot by looking at the unit. You actually have to fly it by the screen. We fly it to the top, and we've established a workflow where we can quickly check the condition of each module of, say, a Hersig, and in a lot less time than it would take to bring in a scaffolding team and set it up and do it that way. So Gresco offers these. Gresco worked with us to allow us to try the unit out before we purchased it. So that was we really appreciate Gresco for that. So this is a boiler furnace, and let me get back to my pointer that I need to start the video here. Give me just 1 second to do that. There we go. Okay, so this is an actual inspection using UAS of one of our boiler furnaces using the Helios. You can see the scaffolding off to the left-hand side there. This is probably the second half of what we were looking at. So you get about 6 or 7 minutes out of a flight. So it took us roughly we were in and out of there in about an hour. Usually it takes, well, it's hard to say. It could be anywhere from 2 to 3 days once you do all the scaffolding, get that in and out of there. We were able to get everything that we needed in about an hour. So we went through about 7 batteries in order to get this done. So, and it took a little bit of time to kind of establish an approach to how we were going to fly it. You know, what the field of view was going to be. It took us a little bit of time, so it wasn't always an hour, but that's about how long it takes us to do it now that we, streamline the process, at least for us. So I'll go ahead and pause that, move on to the next one, which is our Hersigs. Play that video for you. So this is somewhere between the CO catalyst and the ammonia ejection grid. So I reached out to an engineer and I said, hey, I'm going to be doing this presentation. I know how you guys were doing it before, but I really didn't understand how long it would take and what, how much time and how much money you're saving. So we weren't able to actually quantify that yet because it's still relatively new to us. And it just kind of depends on the situation and what you're able to identify from the ground. And I'll just go ahead and summarize kind of what he had sent back to me. So obviously the benefit to the UAS is not to have to set up the scaffold in the boiler furnace or areas inside the Hersig. So that's definitely um, a bonus there. If we see an issue from the scaffolding or from the videos, then obviously they got to go in and deal with it. So then you still got to set up the scaffolding, but you're not flying blind. You have an idea of what it is you have to deal with before you get up there. Normally they would, be on the ground and they can only really see up about 70 feet. So whatever you can see in 70 feet is what you can see. And that's not probably the best approach because it doesn't really, the bottom 70 feet may not represent well the other, in some cases, maybe 60 feet or 50 feet of structure above it. So it definitely saves money. It definitely saves time. But we don't really have any hard numbers as to how much time it saves. It would probably save anywhere from 2 to 3 days if you don't have to send up any scaffolding. So we have a special use case where we utilize this UAS to go inside of a hydroelectric dam and actually do an inspection of one of our penstocks. So penstock, for those of you who may not know what a penstock is, there's an inlet gate from the water side or the reservoir side of the dam that opens up. The water goes through there, down the penstock, and then to the turbine that spins and creates power, or in some cases can be reversed to bring water back up to the reservoir. We do have 2 units at 2 separate hydro facilities that have that capability. So in this case, every 12 months, an interior inspection of a penstock at one of our hydroelectric facilities is performed. A scaffolding contractor installs a special type of scaffolding, which takes about a day, day and a half, and it also takes about the same time to take it back out of there. So you already got 2, maybe 3 days of just scaffolding construction and takedown. So once you do have the scaffolding installed, you send in the inspection team once they're cleared, climb the scaffolding and perform the inspection. And all of this is very costly and time consuming. So it just kind of adds to the outage and things that you can be working on. So the interior of this penstock was relined with carbon fiber because the original one was built in 1926, I believe, and was a riveted steel. And over the course of that much time, it's going to fatigue and make leaks. So they brought in a contractor to put in this lining and has a warranty, so it has to be inspected every 12 months. So we gave it a go, and here's the video. So little platform, has a range extender. So Jason there is managing the range extender, and we have it on a stick because we were definitely going to be going beyond, line of sight was not an option. So we wanted to make sure that we at least had good, solid communication with the aircraft throughout the entire flight, because it would just be a heck of a deal to have to set up scaffolding just to go get our drone back. So there it is. There's the range extender on the end of our hot stick, and it is making its way to its first part of, and I'll show you in the next video, of the bifurcation. So you can, somebody's looking over my shoulder. I believe it was actually the inspection engineer who was taking this video. And the drone, it's gone. It's beyond line of sight. So the first go continued here. This is from the UAS perspective. Takes off, and you can see where there has been repairs before. We looked at each one of those once we got up there, and peeking over the crest is about 20 feet tall, 20 to 30 feet tall, and always a little bit of seepage, just part of the deal there. and it peeks over, and there is the bifurcation for the two inlets from the inlet gates. And you can see the green there where they've been, made some over the years. I'm sorry, I don't remember when they actually did this repair, or not the repairs, but the actual new lining. But a lot of water goes through there, a lot of pressure can create some wear and tear, and this is why it's important to do this inspection. So engineers looking over my shoulder, the inspector, and determining whether or not any of these things needed to be repaired. And one of the more important things that we needed to look at were the seams coming up where you can see the riveted steel. That's the part that actually goes through the dam. That's the concrete. That's the concrete. There's concrete all around that. So we didn't, no repairs were needed, but there's a seam there, and we needed to make sure that that seam wasn't delamming. So we spent some time looking at that seam, and looking up. So each one of these bifurcations took one battery. So it's about 7 minutes to do one side, 7 minutes to do the other. Once we got done, we obviously had plenty of time to spare. We put another battery in, and he said, let's go check the inlet gates. So we went to one inlet gate, which you can see there at the end of the penstock, and inspected it, and then we were able to fly back out of that bifurcation and then move to the other side where we looked at the other inlet gate, and we were able to complete that all in one battery. So it took about 7 minutes to actually do that. So it was beneficial. It worked out really, really well, especially for our first go of it. Spend some time practicing with it, and you need to do that because it's for those of you out there that are operating UAS a lot. Your GPS denied, so you're on your toes the entire time you're flying this thing. So spend a little bit of time somewhere and practice in an environment where you're not going to lose it, get it hung up on something. It is, like I said, collision tolerant, but there are some things to be cautious about that as well. You can still definitely break it. So there is looking back at the seam. So we were able to determine that the seam on both sides was actually still very tight, no delamming. And then we could start working our way back to where we took off. I can go ahead and forward that. There's the other side. Same deal. Looking back and starting to work our way back down. See the light down at the bottom. And this is edited, so you don't get to see all the bloopers, unfortunately. So that was the video of the first time we actually flew a penstock inside of a dam, and we've done others, and it's worked out. There's a lot of texture in this penstock, so the drone's able to lock onto that, and it makes the flight a lot more stable. Some of the other penstocks that we have are much bigger and don't have this texture, so it was a little bit harder to fly those. So you just need to be prepared and on your toes. So results of the inspection. So in less than a half a day, the inspectors had enough information to give the penstock a clean bill of health. Using UAS to conduct the inspection saved valuable time and money, and using UAS for confined space inspections, it's much safer than previous methods. So obviously you climb up on a scaffolding, you can risk falling, and there's slip hazards and whatnot. So some acknowledgements. Thank you, Gresco, for giving us the opportunity to do an inspection. We ended up picking up one for ourselves. Like to thank SRP Hydro Generation, Generation Engineering, Power Generation, Distribution Maintenance, and Flight Services for allowing me to use content and spend some time to put this presentation together. Thank you, and please stay safe out there. If you have any questions, reach out to uas@gresco.com or call us 478-315-0812, and also visit the website at grescouas.com. Thank you for joining.